Welcome to JHC. I'm CJ, and today we're going to be talking about 3 ways your job breaks your confidence. Most people don't lose confidence because they're lazy or unskilled or incapable. They lose confidence because their job drains them in quiet, subtle ways that they don't notice until the damage is already done. Today, I'm breaking down 3 ways your job might be destroying your confidence without you even realizing it. These signs are psychological, emotional, and they're extremely common, especially in these toxic workplaces that a lot of people work in. If any of these applies to you, it's not a you problem. It's the environment that you are working in. So let's go ahead and talk about it. The first way that your job attempts to break your confidence is through micromanagement. And this is micromanagement that rewires your self-trust. Micromanagement slowly rewires your brain to believe that you can't trust yourself. So it's almost a form of gaslighting. Micromanagement is not just annoying, it's a psychological conditioning agenda. When a manager constantly watches you, corrects you, questions you, or hovers over your work, your brain slowly starts to create a pattern. You either must be doing something wrong, you can't make decisions on your own, you can't do anything right, you need approval before you can move forward. It's almost as if you're stunted in being able to trust your decision-making skills and the actions that you do while on the job. And you don't even realize that it's happening. You just notice that over time, you second-guess yourself more, you hesitate before making decisions, you feel nervous sending simple emails because you think they're going to get scrutinized, and the truth is they tend to. You start double and triple checking your work for mistakes that aren't even there. And you assume criticism is coming even when it isn't. Micromanagement turns confident employees into anxious employees, and anxious employees into workers who doubt every move that they make. And that micromanagement doesn't just harm you while you're on the job, you end up carrying that home as well too. And it starts to hurt other things that you do. It's almost spreading like a disease to a certain extent. And here's the worst part. Micromanagers rarely micromanage because you are incompetent. They do it because they are insecure. But their insecurity all of a sudden becomes your internal voice. If you used to be decisive and now lately you're shaky on decision making, or if you used to trust your skills and now you're unsure, this is not anything that's random. This is a psychological impact. This is the psychological impact of being over controlled. And to be honest, when you are micromanaged, you really only have 2 choices. You either challenge the micromanagement and potentially set yourself up to be seen as a difficult employee to manage, and that furthers any trust issues or issues you may have on the job, period. Or you accept what's being said and become more accident prone because you become more anxious. And you're forced to keep satisfying someone who already has insecurities within themselves. So even if you didn't really have a problem with being anxious or afraid that you're going to make a mistake, now you end up actually making mistakes that can be documented because you're so anxious. The second way that your job attempts to break your confidence is by only giving you feedback when you mess up. Your confidence is dying because the only time you get feedback is when something goes wrong. A healthy workplace gives balanced feedback. Here's what you did well. Here's what you need to improve on. Here's what's next. Where do you want to go next? They ask these types of questions. It's a balanced process. A toxic workplace, you only hear from them when you have made a mistake. And here's what that does to your confidence. You start bracing yourself every time someone says, "Can we talk?" You assume any meeting means something bad. And that was a big one for me. You stop taking creative risks. You shrink your personality. You stop volunteering for tasks because you don't want to be judged. You become hyper aware of everything that you do wrong and blind to everything that you do right. If anything, you start downplaying when you do things that are right, as if they're things that you should have automatically done right. And a lot of times, these are things that are usually extraordinary. They're beyond the norm of what is expected from you. You're probably exceeding, but you see it as just a normal thing, and you end up not giving yourself enough credit. You're used to this idea that there's more improvement to be had because of the way that feedback is given to you. The only time that management notices you is when you're disappointed. And your brain learns this dangerous lesson. My best effort is invisible. My mistakes define me. This destroys confidence because humans build confidence from wins. If the workplace never acknowledges your wins, your brain never gets the reward signal that says you're capable. And this leads to something most employees never talk about. You start believing the job is above your abilities. You start feeling like you're behind or not performing, even if you're doing the work of two people, that is. And then the company will call you disengaged, unsure. They'll say you'll have low confidence, and they may even say that you're incompetent, depending on what type of environment you are in. And they do all this knowing that they are the ones who are creating that insecurity. And on the opposite end, you aren't rewarded for doing a good job, let alone acknowledged for it. And I used to work at this job, by the way, that had this ongoing culture that you don't look for pats on the back if you do a good job. You will know you did a good job because you kept your job. And that's the type of mentality that these types of individuals tend to have. Now, the third and final way that your job attempts to break your confidence is by constantly changing the expectations that they have for you as an employee. Your confidence collapses when the expectation at your job constantly shifts. A job with moving goalposts will ruin even the most confident person. And here's what inconsistent expectations look like. One day, your task has one standard. The next day is completely different. Your role expands, but no one explains how. Your priorities change weekly. You finish a project and they suddenly ask why you didn't do it in a different way. You do something exactly as is instructed, and they say, "Why did you do it like that?" You're held responsible for outcomes that never were communicated clearly or communicated whatsoever. This creates something that psychologists call learned helplessness. It's the feeling that no matter what you do, you're going to get it wrong. You start believing even, I must be the problem. I'm not keeping up. And when we live in a society where you're encouraged to blame yourself for everything, even if it's not your fault, you're going to do this constantly. Everyone else to you seems fine. It's like something must be wrong with you on a personal level. But here's the truth that you're not being told. You cannot succeed in a system that does not define success for you. You cannot meet expectations that change every week. You cannot feel confident when the rules of the job are based on the mood of management instead of a real process. When your job constantly changes direction, your brain never gets stability. And without stability, confidence cannot grow. It collapses. And stack that on with them being fake forgetful about changes. When a job destroys your confidence, it doesn't happen loudly. It happens slowly. It happens quietly. And through daily behaviors, these things show up and they start to feel normal. Micromanagement rewires your self-trust. Negative-only feedback teaches you to doubt yourself. Shifting expectations make you feel like you're failing, even when you're doing the impossible. If you're experiencing any of these, the problem is not your confidence. It's the environment that you are in that's damaging you. Confidence comes back when you're in a workplace that supports clarity, growth, and ultimately respect. This was another episode of JHC. I'm CJ, and I will talk to you later.